Good morning.
Good morning.
If you like most people, you don't like disturbance, you don't like confusion, you don't like anxiety, you don't like crisis. You may not even like happiness. You know? Happiness is kind of disturbing. Most people prefer the desire for happiness over actual happiness. Happiness, sometimes I like to say, happiness is overrated. Happiness, if you look at the actual experience of happiness, I think it's just gracing our life in some sort of unpredictable way. It just comes. But most people, I think, like to control happiness. And because happiness cannot be controlled, then it's complicated. Some commotion here, so I'm going to stop for a moment. We don't like disturbance. But if you're a practitioner, you want to use those experiences of disturbance and confusion and crisis and happiness that you cannot control as a gateway to realization. This sounds like, just abstract stuff, gateway to realization, what's that? So let's talk about it. We're not monastics. I'm not a monastic anymore. And because we're not monastics, we need to find a way to practice in our everyday life, in our everyday circumstances, which means in this very moment, we need to find a way to practice. And usually, you think of your practice as, sorry if this is not the case for you, I'm just speaking in general terms. Most people think of their practice as a special time. You sit down for meditation and that's what your practice is. Or you have a certain kind of mindfulness practice, let's say attending to some sense perceptions or, your body. And if you can remember it, those moments of mindfulness practice are certain situations in which you define your life as practice. And then, whether this is particularly conscious to you or not, you kind of hope, that this practice will translate into your daily life and make it better. Is that fair? Something like that. And it works to some degree, but it also, and that's quite disturbing, it also kind of doesn't work. Many people have the feeling that they're not really making any progress in practice, that it's kind of, it helps sort of, but it's not really transformational, transformative. I think we need to maybe, this is I'm just going to explore this, and as one particular gate, I think we need to maybe see our whole life, our whole existence, as a dance of form and emptiness. Not sometimes, but all the time. All the time it's a dance of form and emptiness. In the Heart Sutra, if you practice here in the morning, we chant it every day. In the Heart Sutra, which you can also understand as it's like an essence sutra, right? It's a condensation of a particular kind of teaching, and the essence of that essence is the statement in the Heart Sutra that form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Form is emptiness and emptiness is form. And that's just kind of abstract gibberish, like form is emptiness. And okay, I've got my life to live, Thank you very much. So, it also says, it continues, form is emptiness and emptiness is form. The same is true for feelings, perceptions, impulses, and consciousness. So, complete this statement and recognize that feelings are emptiness and emptiness is feelings. Perceptions are emptiness and emptiness is perceptions. And impulses, habits, conditionings, emotions, inclinations are emptiness. And emptiness is inclinations and habits and emotions and so forth. And consciousness is emptiness, and emptiness is consciousness. So, form originally means, the body, and physical objects that are perceived through the sense organs of the body. The materiality that we consider external. And the body, maybe we don't consider the body external, but if you define yourself as a mind inside the body is actually external too. But anyway, I'm just making complications here. So this is materiality. But then there are all these, from our Western point of view, subjective factors of feelings and perceptions and inclinations and consciousness, thoughts. In this slogan, form is emptiness and emptiness is form, all of this, the objective and subjective factors of your existence are all subsumed under form. From this point of view, form just means anything that is fixated in some way, that has a definition, that has an outline, that you can point to, that you can name. And this is really anything. Let's take an example. Like, let's say you have an opinion. Do you have an opinion?
Do I? No. Not on the spot.
No opinion. Okay, fine. Maybe you're afraid of having an opinion.
Absolutely.
Okay. Let's take an opinion that probably we all share, okay? Like something safe.
Puppies are cute.
Puppies are cute. Nice.
There you go.
I wanted to say democracy is good.
Sure.
But okay, fine. This is kind of on the same level. Puppies are cute, democracy is good.
Puppies are democracy.
So, So you'd say you have the opinion that democracy is good. That's you are giving your mind this form that democracy is good. But then if you investigate, certain situations like climate change, we can see that democracy seems to be failing at addressing this problem, and has so for decades. It seems to be impossible through this political form. I'm going to leave aside any, possible reasons for this, but it seems to be impossible to agree on policies that help us to transition into a net zero carbon future, right? So from that point of view, we could form the opinion that democracy is bad. That would not be unreasonable, because democracy cannot contribute to solving this existential problem. But I've learned that democracy is good. I mean, I have breathed this opinion my whole life. So this moment in which you cannot really land easily on one side or the other, it's actually not clear whether democracy is good or bad. This is an experience of emptiness. You understand? You cannot land anywhere. There is actually no ground. I just put you in that place. If you have the sensitivity to go there and let your mind not be able to land any, if you do feel that discomfort, or this jitteriness of not being able to land anywhere, you might also find the tendency to want to land somewhere, the desire to argue that no, it is good nonetheless, or yes, now I'm convinced it's bad, or like this, of course, is a made-up example. Puppies are cute.
Sorry.
As long as they don't have cancer, and you feel compelled to do something about this and alleviate the suffering and take the puppy to the vet and spend, thousands of dollars, and right? But this life process that we're in, or a puppy is in, is actually very fragile, and we're all aging. Illness is always a possibility. Death is certain. So this disturbance of wanting to, have a good life and arrange your life in forms that are secure and help you to be happy and content and so forth, this desire is a way of actually rejecting or defending against this ungroundedness, this emptiness that is actually underlying everything. I think it is helpful if you want to approach emptiness as an experience. It is helpful to understand it conceptually, but it's not going to be enough. But it's an important starting point. It's an important starting point. So let me just say a few things that you almost want to make touchstones in your Buddhist thinking, so that it's like that's easy, that it becomes easy to come back to, so that you don't confuse emptiness with some kind of nothingness or void or, some nihilist notion of nothing matters and everything is meaningless, which is what the concept can suggest to us if we're not, informed enough. So the first meaning of emptiness is that everything changes. Change is pervasive. Everything changes. Of course, your subjective experience, it's very clear. Your feelings change, your perceptions change. I look over here, I look over there. Your inclinations and whims and desires change, and your habits seem like they don't change, but they can change. Thoughts change, ideas, opinions, views change. But, physical objects change. All physical objects change. Cultures change, civilizations come and go. Stars explode and are born. There are physicists who think that the laws of physics, which we think are, stable, right? There's at least, if you can rely on God, at least you can rely on the laws of physics. But there's physicists who think that, when the universe was born in the Big Bang, a certain set of laws came to govern this universe. But when the universe maybe collapses, nobody's quite sure what's happening, right? But when it collapses and then maybe expands again, or maybe there are multiple universes, that makes no sense, multiverses, then, maybe a new set of laws of physics emerge, and the world functions quite differently. There are people who have those thoughts, and they're not. You can't easily dismiss them, actually, because some people are doing the math for that. I'm not. I mean, intuitively, it makes sense to me that you could have a universe expanding and then collapsing again and then expanding with a different set of laws. So temporarily, there's form, but it's always already changing. But some forms are changing in time frames that are difficult for us. So it's difficult for us to observe the change, like a mountain. But clearly, rocks are sliding down the mountain, and the mountain is eroding. And mountains are born through the instability of the planet. Lifted up through volcanic action or fault lines, rubbing. But it's difficult to observe a fault line. Some people, we have developed the measurements to do it. Anyway, you understand my point. Everything is changing. This is one dimension of emptiness. Form is empty because it's not permanent. It's not stable. It's not something that can stay defined and fixed and outlined over time. And the other dimension, the other meaning of emptiness is interdependence, that nothing exists on its own. everything is dependently originating. Everything is influenced by everything else. Thich Nhat Hanh, famously talks about this piece of paper. The piece of paper has the sun in it, and the rain, and the tree, and the logger that cut down the tree, and the parents that gave birth to the logger, and the grandparents, and the food that all these people ate, and the farmers that are growing the food that the people eat, and all of this is present in this piece of paper, and the paper is made up of non-paper elements. Right? If I summarized his thought correctly but briefly. According to Thich Nhat Hanh, it takes deep looking to begin to see that things are interdependent and not separate. And this is true. Things do appear to be separate. This is why you need the teaching of interdependence, because it appears that, you and I are separate. And so the third meaning of emptiness is something that's difficult to understand for most people, is non-self, in the sense that we don't exist through ourselves. We exist through other things. Actually, we exist through everything all at once. We arise from the complexity of everything all at once. And we arise from that complexity moment after moment. It's not like, well, you arise and then you have a stable form. You arise in relationship to everything else, and you are changing together with everything else. This is just, basic Buddhist thought. But it takes time to let that worldview sink in, and you can exercise that intellectually by studying. You study, and you let this understanding of emptiness get in touch with your life. So maybe let's take opinion again. Maybe you're somebody who has a lot of opinions. Or maybe you're somebody who doesn't like to have opinions. Because it's kind of dangerous to have opinions. If you have an opinion, there sure will be somebody who disagrees. And if your primary inclination in life is to fit in, then it's difficult to have an opinion, because then you feel rejected when somebody says, well, I disagree, Oh, what a stupid opinion. So maybe you dream of a life in which you can be opinionless. And just establishing a territory here. If you I mean, of course we all have opinions. And of course we all have, sometimes we have a certain kind of anxiety to come forward with our opinions. So this is just like, we all know this territory, but you may have a certain style and be more comfortable with having an opinion or voicing it, or be less comfortable with it. Anyway. But can you allow this doubt that surrounds every opinion you have? Or can you acknowledge that actually, what is it like to not have enough information to really be sure about your opinion? Or is that maybe true about everything? That we never have enough information about anything to really justify an opinion? Isn't there always something else that speaks for the other side of the opinion that we were just forming? To let that kind of disturbance actually enter into your life is to walk through the gate of emptiness. Now, emptiness and form are undivided. If you want to have a concretization of what non-duality is, then you can use this and say, oh, emptiness and form, or form and emptiness, are undivided. We can divide them conceptually, obviously, right? Because we have two words, form and emptiness, so they are divided. But fundamentally, they are undivided. This sounds simpler than it is. It means that in no circumstance, form and emptiness come separate from each other. Your opinion, let's take this as an example of form, your opinion never comes without its interdependence with the other side. It never comes with without its changeability. It never stands on its own. It has no self in that, it sounds kind of abstract, but it has no self because it is embedded in a whole, concert of opinions that proffer it, or, a narrative that makes sense of that opinion. When you realize this, it becomes harder to have an opinion. You see? It's like, there's no ground, there's no absolute ground for it. It's just swimming in a sea of change and interdependence. Now, you may want to make a home in this openness, in this opinionless emptiness. But to lead your life, you kind of have to make certain statements. You have to make decisions about what is good and bad for you, what you're going to do, how you're going to live. And this is giving your life form. This is always, that's why I'm calling it the dance of form and emptiness. This is never resolvable. This is fundamentally uncomfortable. When you give your life form, you may be, if your life has no form, I'm lost, I don't know what to do, like, what even makes sense? You maybe hope for some form. And then when you have form, then you may get afraid that you get stuck in that form and you lose all the other possibilities that exist in, the space of emptiness. It's pure potentiality. Everything is possible. But now you've created this form, and so now you're afraid that you're stuck in it. So then you hope for more flexibility or adventure. But when you are about to destroy the form of your life, you feel the groundlessness of that. So you want a plan for how to transition from one form to the other. And that plan is also a form, And then you realize there are no plans that really work, because life brings all these unforeseen things, so you have to, again, have some openness. You see, this is not resolvable. Form and emptiness always come together, and they're always in some kind of unresolvable tension. So we don't like crisis, I said. What is a crisis? I'm speaking in sort of like a ordinary understanding of crisis, identity crisis or, midlife crisis. Or a crisis of a serious disease, medical crisis, the crisis of dying. I have mentioned this quite often. It's part of my life right now. I have a 2-year-old son, right? He's in crisis of like being in the transition from infant to toddler, As an infant, you can sort of, I watched him, you can sort of relax into dependency. But then as a toddler, you want independence, but independence is also difficult. And then you go back and forth between, asserting your independence and wanting to give it up, but when you give it up, you need it again, Sound familiar? We're all still toddlers, A part of us still has this crisis of like, how do you negotiate, dependency and independence? We need others, but not too much, please. I want to be independent, but then it gets lonely, All right, so let's take a midlife crisis. Some of you haven't had that. Some of you are beyond that. But a midlife crisis is something like, in my mind, is something like, you gave your life form, and then you feel stuck in that. And you ask yourself, is this really how I should have lived my life? Does this even make sense? And then you have dreams of what you could have done or what you really should do, right? What are the feelings that come up in a crisis like this? It's not even, we can try to give it names. We can try to give these feelings names, but I would say the feelings are just something like, it's just a very fundamental existential vulnerability. Like not knowing what to do with this aliveness that you don't even know where it comes from, really. do you recognize in yourself how feelings of existential disturbance are typically something that you are trying to get rid of, that you try to push away, that you want to, you maybe even feel guilty for having them. It's like, I shouldn't have these feelings of existential insecurity or disturbance. It's like, that just shows that I'm an insufficient person. Like, I don't have a plan for my life, and I really should. Well, let me assure you, everyone has this kind of existential disturbance in the midst of their existence. So there's nothing wrong with it. The path of practice is to be inviting of it, to welcome it as a taste of emptiness. Emptiness shows itself through these kinds of feelings of disturbance. We can build off of this example of opinion is like at the existential disturbance that you can touch there is what in Zen is called not knowing. So you want to actually, as a practitioner, you want to find situations of not knowing. I mean, not actively, like go put, create situations of not knowing. Oh, well, maybe too, but what I mean is just recognize them. And not see them as deficiencies, but as gateways to a realization of emptiness. It's like, I don't know what I should do. I have this situation every time I give a talk, right? I don't know what to talk about. It's always disturbing. I find it always disturbing. And it is also the very condition for my creativity. I have to not know what I'm going to talk about so that I can, push myself into something new or find some form that satisfies my interest at the time and that I also feel is going to connect with you. It's like, but people think like, oh, creativity is such a nice thing. It's not. It's not nice. It's profoundly disturbing. It's like, imagine an artist. I'm married to one. It is. It's like you make something, you have an idea, you realize your idea, it's done. If you're lucky, you're kind of happy with what you made, right? But you might not be happy. That's the first disturbance. Well, it's not the first one. The first one is like, oh, I don't know, I'm an artist. I'm supposed to make something, but I don't know what to make. Okay, so then you make something, then it doesn't meet your standards, or it doesn't meet your standards, makes you happy, doesn't make you happy, it's beautiful, or it's ugly, or anyway, you get my point. But then when you're done, maybe you make a body of work, maybe you put it in a gallery, and then what? Then you start at zero. It's absolutely zero. Because then you need to make something new, something else. What's that going to be? So you can have this profound anxiety. I'm going to run out of things to say, or I'm going to run out of things to make. Rilke, the German poet, celebrated. I don't know his biography well enough, but if I remember correctly, he didn't have anything to say or to write or anything that met the standards of his poetry for 20 years. There's this first phase of his prolific phase of his writing, and then nothing. 20 years. And then there's this other part of his oeuvre which is, very different and innovative. So, took 20. You want to live those 20 years? I don't. Or you do. Anyway, just don't think of it as something like, oh, it's this nice thing to be creative. If you're really creative, when you sit zazen, you sit and you allow your thoughts to dance in and out of existence. You sit and you don't want to have the idea of wanting to stop your thoughts. This is like, wanting to stop your thoughts is like trying to get rid of form and arrive in emptiness. No thoughts. Okay, I'm not going to be disturbed. No, form and emptiness are undivided, and they always come together. So you're making a mind that allows thoughts, form, to dance in and out of existence. And now and then, that dance stops. If you continue to practice with this attitude, now and then that dance stops. In that moment, it seems like emptiness sort of comes to the foreground and appears as this, clarity of mind that doesn't produce form. The form of thought, but it does produce the form of, sitting there on the cushion. But through your zazen practice, you are practicing a mental posture of allowing the. I'll say it again. You're allowing form to dance in and out of existence. What would it be like to bring this attitude of letting form dance in and out of existence, this unresolvable undividedness of form and emptiness in every aspect of your life? You want to go out with your friends. With a group of people, and inevitably somebody is taking a long time to get ready. Right? You know that situation. And what would it be like to invite that moment in which you're just suspended in non-action? See, if you get angry about the person not getting ready, you are already fixating into form. The way I'm presenting it right now is you might say, oh, that's wrong, I shouldn't do that. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying, can you feel the energy? Can you feel underneath your, waiting there, being somewhat disturbed by the situation not going the way you thought it would go, which was your projection of form onto emptiness. I want to get going. That was your projection of form. It's not happening. Can you feel that energy? And then you could feel your energy of wanting to make it happen a certain way as, just the way you give the situation form. It's not wrong to want people to, be on time or keep their promises or something. It's not wrong. But of course there's another side to it, which is like, oh, you just let it happen as, and if we don't go to dinner, that's okay too. It's a dance. So can we envision life, rather than envisioning life as an antidote to disturbance and crisis and confusion and so forth, and wanting practice to deliver clarity and harmony and all that, can we instead envision life as a process with neither the hope nor the fear of it forming in a particular direction? Do you hear that? With neither the hope nor the fear. The hope would be, I want an identity, I want a form, I want to be someone, I want my life to be this way. This is the hope for form. Or you have the fear of form. It's like, oh God, I'm stuck in this life, now I'm sitting in this house. I don't want to be in this town. What about being in a different town? Or the hope for emptiness would be like to dissolve what you have, and not be stuck in it. And the fear of emptiness would be to feel so ungrounded, to feel directionlessness. What if this process that we call life has all of this always happening simultaneously? And you can't get rid of it. Emptiness is, feelings are empty, feelings are emptiness, and emptiness is feelings. Feelings are coming and going, and they're dependent on circumstances, and at all times we are manifesting through our feelings and our perceptions and our impulses and our thoughts and our bodies. A continual dance of form and emptiness. And you don't arrive anywhere. Enjoy.
Yeah.